Wouldn't it be nice to have several thought leaders in your industry know and love your brand? Start a podcast. Invite your industry's thought leaders to be guests on your show, and start reaping the benefits of having a network full of industry influencers. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show. Welcome back to the B2B Growth Show. My name is James Carberry. I am one of the co-hosts of the show and the founder of Sweetfish Media. I'm here today with my new friend, Dan Rouse. He's the co-founder of Dream Leadership Consulting. Dan, how are you doing today?
Fantastic. Happy to be here.
So Dan, I recently read a book called The Dream Manager by Matthew Kelly. And I was looking around at just who has implemented this idea well, and you popped up at the top of my Google search, and reached out. I ended up being in your backyard, so we're getting
this is live.
Yeah, this is live. So we're getting to do this in person, which never happens with B2B Growth, and so ended up being in Phoenix. So we're here now. But tell us a little bit about your journey with this concept of dreams, and also give us a little bit of your background, and then I'm going to dig into kind of what is a dream program, because you've actually implemented that at the company we're at right now, Keep, here in Phoenix. And so curious to hear a little of your background, and then how you got started with this idea of dreaming.
Yeah, fantastic. I've always been really fascinated with dreaming. In fact, my master's thesis when I was getting my master's degree in education was around this kind of concept and idea. So it's been a lifelong passion for me since I was sitting on my high school waterbed and reading Dr. Seuss's "Oh, the Places You'll Go"
Yes.
and over one too many times. So it's been, for me, it's a really fascinating idea. And the thing that kind of turned for me was this, when I finally realized that dreaming is not just a fun idea, but it's actually a really practical leadership tool. And how do we help people to trust us enough to have them let us lead them, and also to help them be motivated and inspired to grow in their lives. And so I learned that for the very first time when I was actually a school teacher. So I started my own private high school. I didn't tell you that before, but I started my own private high school, and part of the philosophy of the high school is I hated high school. I didn't like high school. Like, nobody really enjoyed high school, in part because there wasn't a lot of purpose. There wasn't a lot of meaning in it. And so with my high school students, I would say, all right, what's your dream? Like, what's the future look like for you? Because at the end of the day, as a teacher, I'm here to serve your ability to go make this happen. And something started to shift in the hearts and minds of my students, where I had a student who before was failing in gym class. He would later say, I don't know how you can fail gym.
But he figured out how to do it.
Who would go on to double major at Northwestern. And what shifted for him was when all of a sudden it became his education and not my education, when it became about his dream and not about my dream, when it became about his agenda, not my agenda. And I started to see wild things happen in this little school I was teaching at, and then ended up here at Keep. Long story, I won't tell the long story, but ended up here at Keep, which was at the time Infusionsoft. And they said, hey, we've got this idea about a dreaming program, and we're interested to see if you'd like to try it out. And so I realized that the experiences I had that took a failing high school student and turned him into just a kid who would read 800 pages of Plato over the summer for fun, maybe could work in a corporate environment. And so I had my chance to try that out.
Yes. So you rolled out, or were one of the first people to help roll out the Dream program. I think you had somebody before you that
that initially started the program, but you came in pretty early.
Pretty early in the process, yeah.
And so I'm curious, because now you've consulted several other companies in how to roll out these dream programs. Can you walk us through some best practices for rolling out a dream program inside of a company?
So let me first give, for those who haven't read Matthew Kelly's book, let me give a little bit more context around what a dreaming program is.
Yeah.
So a dreaming program essentially asserts that when we, as a company, my job as a dream coach, as a dream mentor, was to help our employees to identify, articulate, and accomplish their personal dreams. Because we had a value here at Infusionsoft/Keap, which was that we believe in people and their dreams. And it didn't make any sense for us to say, we believe in our clients, we believe in their dreams, we're here to serve their dreams, and then turn to the employees and say, sit down, shut up, we don't care what your dreams are.
Yeah.
Right? It just didn't work. It was incongruent. And so when our founder, Clayton Mask, read The Dream Manager, he said, man, we need to have a dreaming program at our company, and in which we're going to actually take interest in and help our employees to accomplish whatever their dreams are. Because here they are serving my dream as an entrepreneur, and perhaps in some small sliver, I can help their dreams, whatever they might be.
Yeah, I love that. So let's shift to how do you actually roll out a program like this?
Yeah. So I've helped a lot of different companies, and I think it's obviously very different depending on the size of the company. So let me just talk really quickly about a small business.
Okay.
The good news is if you're a small business, meaning I have 25 or fewer employees, or I have 10 employees or 8 employees, this is a really easy program to roll out, primarily because the step one is to say, I'm just going to ask my employees about what their dreams are. So that's step one, is you just have to ask.
Yep.
And you can bring it up in a team meeting or as a trust building activity, and you can just say, hey, I'm curious. I know that you're probably going to hold back a little bit because I'm the boss, and you're going to be afraid to say some things, but what are you willing to share about what your dreams are, what your hopes and aspirations are? And in fact, I would even encourage you to make a list. I'd love to just know about what your dreams are. So at the very simplest facet to start a program like this is simply by asking the question, what are your dreams? Now that will get you only so far, right? And then the next phase is we want to be able to become a better coach of those dreams. So once I know that this person's dreams is to travel to Nantucket, or to adopt a child, or to buy a new car, or to buy a house for the first time, or become a U.S. citizen, or whatever the dream happens to be, and by the way, they come in all shapes and sizes, then it's like gaining some skills around coaching those dreams for your employees, because you can damage the process if we have a bunch of people that say, my dream is this, and they don't accomplish it. And that's like practicing, not accomplishing dreams. We don't want anyone to get good at not accomplishing dreams.
Yeah.
So we do need to want to encourage accomplishment. And so to become a little bit of a coach and gain some coaching skills is a good spot to start for a small business.
I love it.
Now, if you're a much bigger organization and things move much slower, what I usually recommend is what we did here at Infusionsoft at the time, was to just pilot a program with a handful or a smaller group of employees, and to say, all right, we're going to get our group of our frontline managers trained. We're going to introduce this to our sales floor, and we're going to invite them to create a list of dreams and then work towards accomplishing those dreams. And we're going to position all of the managers within the smaller team, within our pilot, as dream coaches for their employees.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. So what are some common mistakes that you see companies making? You alluded to the one earlier about not having, the proper training or the proper people in the role of being those dream coaches. And if you don't have the right person in there, folks can start to practice failing on accomplishing their dreams. But are there other mistakes that you see companies making that our listeners could just know in advance going into rolling out a program like this that they could avoid?
Well, first of all, the biggest mistake is not to try. Is to stay in the role of a boss and employee, a boss and peon. That role, I think, it's so 20th century, right? It's like we've kind of surpassed this experience where, hey, if you're just treating your employees like employees, then pretty soon they're going to find someone who doesn't treat them that way. And so the first mistake is not to try at all. So I really encourage moving forward and trying. But the second thing that that occurs to me is that the leader who struggles is to make sure that we have an environment of enough trust where that conversation can happen. So there are some foundational trust elements, meaning if I don't feel safe in my job, if there's abusive kind of culture, if there's some kind of culture that isn't working to at least meet the basic needs of human beings, if there isn't a set of values within the company, that's probably where I'd start before I start asking about dreaming. We saw periodically where different little pockets within the company, even at a great company like this one, where the culture wasn't quite right, where the leader might not be treating their employees right. And we talked about dreaming, and the employees are like, listen, you won't even listen to my ideas, much less listen to my dreams. And so I'm not going to trust you with dreams if I can't even communicate my ideas and feel safe in that way. So that's one mistake that we can make, is maybe trying to push the conversation of dreaming if we haven't built a little bit of foundation of trust beforehand.
Yeah. So in the book, Dan, they talk about, this, and it's a cool book because it's a story that you're reading.
Sure.
And so you're learning about this janitorial company that has rolled out this dream program with they hired a dream manager, and your approach is a little bit different, because instead of thinking that you need to hire a specific person for this role, which is actually what your role at Infusionsoft was, you said, man, I think this might be more effective if we do it a different way. Can you explain what you learned and how now you consult with other companies?
Yeah, it's kind of cool having the title of dream coach or dream guy, because at the end of the day, everyone wants your job. You kind of feel a little bit like a corporate fairy godmother. And the story that happened to me was I looked around the organization. People would say, Dan, I wish I had your job. And one day I had a kind of a frontline manager, was somebody who led one of our support teams. And they said, man, I wish I had your job. And I said, wow, you should. You should have my job. Yeah. Like, as a leader, you're in the strongest position to influence, coach, and transform the lives of those you lead. And if you're not being a dream coach or a dream guy, or if you're not supporting the dreams of your employees, then in my mind, you're doing your job wrong, because you have this tremendous responsibility and opportunity to impact and influence people's lives and their children's lives and the generations of children that follow after that. And man, it's a tremendous opportunity. And so for me, what it finally dawned on me, and it took me a while, it wasn't something that I caught on right at the beginning, because I thought, how cool, I'm the dream guy. And I felt really proud about that. Yeah. And then finally it dawned on me, man, I need to give this away. And so we developed a training for those leaders. And we said, hey, from all my experience coaching dreamers, here's some good do's and don'ts.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it was a day-long, 2-day training. And then I said, listen, let's gather your team together. Let's introduce you as the dream leader, the dream coach for these employees. And let's invite them to share their dreams with you. And what's so funny is, at first, I wasn't sure they would. I thought maybe employees will hesitate to share dreams with their leader, right? Because if you're my boss, I'm afraid of you a little bit. And luckily, there was enough culture, or for whatever reason, I only had one employee out of hundreds and hundreds of employees that opted out.
Wow.
And that was the really, really, that was fascinating to me. And the only person who opted out was a super introvert, hyper introvert. And everyone went, yeah, I'm surprised you even came to the meeting. And so, no, at the end of the day, everyone was willing to share. And not only willing to share, but kind of excited about it.
Okay.
And so that was an epiphany for me, is, first of all, that leaders could do the work, and they did it really well, and it went better, by the way, than when I did it. And second, that people were more than willing to share their dreams with those that allowed them.
It's story time, and this growth story is about search engine marketing. Okay, so the story revolves around eSub, a project management SaaS company specifically for subcontractors. Even though eSub had incredible customer retention, they struggled with growth. Being a niche service, they discovered that there was little demand expressed for their solutions within search engines. To take on this challenge, eSub hired Directive Consulting, the B2B search marketing agency. After refining targeting, pre-qualifying clicks within ad copy, and developing custom landing pages, Directive was able to increase eSub's marketing qualified leads by 71%, while decreasing their cost per lead by 65%.
I have a hunch that Directive can get these kind of results for you too. So head over to directiveconsulting.com and request a totally free custom proposal. That's directiveconsulting.com. All right, let's get back to this interview.
And you and I were talking about this before we hit record. I just think there's something powerful about empowering and equipping the leaders in your organization to pull out and support and dream with the people that they're leading, because they're in the trenches with them day in and day out. I mean, it's where when it's, I would imagine, when it's a separate role and you're meeting with your dream person once a month, that person doesn't know, I don't know, they're just not communicating with them on a hyper regular basis like you do with your boss. And so that's just more opportunity then for you as the leader or the boss to be able to step in and integrate what you know about this person's dream into all facets of your relationship with them, because you're seeing them on a regular basis and they want to adopt a child in the next 2 years.
Yes.
So if it were a separate role, and you can speak to this obviously better than I can because you did it, but when you're working on the dreams of hundreds of people, it's probably not, I don't want to say as, you're having to think about a lot of different people's dreams.
Yes.
Whereas when you empower a leader in your organization to do this, maybe you've got 8 to 10 direct reports. You can probably do a lot more with those 8 to 10 because it's
and don't get me wrong, I get that leaders have a ton on their plate.
Yep.
But what you come to find is when you start empowering and connecting and building deep levels of trust, you shift your role as a leader.
Yeah.
Before you were boss, and now you are advocate. I remember I was leading one of our an employee here, and I said, "What's your dream?" Because that's always how I've led. And they said, "My dream is to work internationally." I said, "Fantastic. What kind of company do you want to work for?" Because by the way, you have to be willing to let them leave if you're truly going to care about them. And I said, what kind of company do you want to work for? She said, "I love this place. I want to work here." And at the time, we didn't have any international employees. I said, "Do you think we ever will?" She said, "I think we will." And I said, "Well, what would it take for you to be the employee?" And then she went through and listed how she would have to improve in all the areas as a boss that I was concerned about her. She said, "I'd have to fix my attitude. I'd have to, et cetera, et cetera." And I said, "Would it be okay if I helped you with that?" And she said, "Oh my goodness, would you help me?" And I said, I think as your leader, I would be happy to. Because the things, by the way, that are holding back your employees from being successful in their roles in your company are the same things, the identical things that are holding them back from accomplishing their personal dreams.
Yeah.
And so it may seem like a bait and switch, but it's not. It's because we care about the individual. We want them to be successful in all aspects of their life. But when I say, "Hey, do you want to go to my dream?" One girl, my dream is to go to a wedding in Eastern Europe with my friend of mine. And when she comes back, she says, "Man, it feels like everything's different," because she accomplished something that for her was way outside of her normal comfort zone, way outside of what was easy for her. And she grew as an individual, and therefore she grew in every other part of her life.
So in the book, Dan, Matthew talks about some characteristics that make for, good dream managers, what he calls them in the book. And he says that having a background in like being a financial planner or like, because a lot of dreams have a financial component. Obviously, with your approach of training existing leaders within an organization, you're probably not, a lot of companies, I would imagine, aren't hiring a bunch of former financial planners. But are there certain characteristics that are needed? Are there some leaders in your organization that might not be suited for this? Or can this be something that can be learned by every leader in your organization?
Yeah. I happen to believe deeply in people. So I do think it's something that can be learned by everyone. And we did reframe the role just a little bit because we recognized that we couldn't give everyone a great financial planning background. And so rather than saying, "Hey, we're expecting you to give financial or legal advice," in fact, we advise against it, we said, "But we will give you a list of financial and legal resources that when it's time for your person to go buy a house, here's the number of a guy who we've taught about the program that's happy to help and serve." Because one of the things you'll come to find is that people within the community, even within your own organization, are more than happy to help people accomplish dreams. It's like a magic words. This guy's dream is to buy a house, and suddenly everyone's willing to waive all kinds of fees, and they're willing to help because we care about seeing people self-actualize. Yes. It's in our nature as human beings. And so, first of all, the answer is no. We don't have to have any special expertise. The one expertise that is really probably two elements of expertise that are needed. Number one is you have to be a good problem solver, but luckily, the fact that you're in a leadership role usually means you're a pretty good problem solver. And the second is you have to care about your employees and be willing to sacrifice on their behalf to some degree, not in a major way, but to some degree. And if you're not willing to do one of those two things, you're not going to be play a role of helping people accomplish dreams if you don't have those two things. But generally, I don't want any leader in my organization
to not have
who doesn't have those two things.
Yeah,
so for me, it should be 100%. And certainly people are going to approach it very different ways. You have people who are very analytical. You have people who are very heart-centered. And both of those are going to approach the role in different ways. But at the same time, as a leader, you're like at the core of your job is getting people to move in a direction and to inspire them to grow and develop and to accomplish things. And so the actual function of leader and the function of dream coach or dream manager is the same to me.
Yes.
And so as a result of that, if you have people in your organization, you go, I don't think they would be a good dream manager. You should be questioning, I don't know if they would be a great leader.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. Dan, can you share just a story or two of some dreams that you've seen come to fruition, either during your time at Infusionsoft /Keep or some other companies that you've been able to consult at?
So there are a lot. I mean,
tons.
More than I
we
can.
just saw
more
a
than
wall,
I can tell.
A wall
more than
upstairs.
I can tell. But let me share a couple that I think will be particularly insightful and teach some principles as well. There was a guy here at Infusionsoft. I'll reserve his name because I haven't asked if I could share the story, but he came to me one day and he said, we sat in a room and he shared dreams. His dream was to buy an Xbox One. And I don't know about you, but I wasn't particularly inspired by that dream, and that's something, by the way, you have to be careful of because for you is normal and familiar, for someone else might be a stretch. And he was married. I should mention that because that makes it more of a stretch to buy an Xbox. Anyway, and so we sat down together, we started doing a little coaching. And as you might imagine, it wasn't a very hard thing for us to figure out a way to gather together $400 and for him to go buy his Xbox. And within a matter of weeks, he'd accomplished this dream. Well, he felt very accomplished. He was like, man, look at me. I have an Xbox now. Like, what else do I get? And so I sat down and I said, hey, I think you're underestimating your ability as a human being and my ability as a dream coach. I'm good, man. Yeah. And I said, what dream would require a miracle? And he paused and he said, and then he got kind of serious, when somebody's about to confide something in you. And we recognized he was committed to the dream. It wasn't some fleeting thought. It clearly was something that mattered to him. And he started chasing it down. A year later, we sat down. And what do you think, James? Did we accomplish the dream?
I mean, I'm hoping if this is a story that you're sharing.
It would make a very good story if we didn't. No, we didn't accomplish the dream. Well, we were $100 away a month from tripling his income, and which we both agreed was a pretty good result.
Wow!
And I'm happy to say I think they have 3 kids now, and he and his wife, and he's accomplished that dream. Now, what's cool about that is a couple of things. Number one, he turns to me at the end and goes, and by the way, I don't play my Xbox very much anymore, right? Because he's a busy man. Because he started a little side hustle. He got 2 promotions in his job. And so he had all this potential sitting inside of him, but it needed to be ignited. And once ignited, and I didn't do very much to even do that, but the dream ignited him.
Yeah.
Now he grew up and matured in ways within that year that he had never done before. Meaning the growth of that year was far surpassed any other year for him because he had ignited some ability to grow and develop and do hard things that he wasn't manifesting before, at least. And so to me, that's the magic. The magic is so imagine that all of that, everyone that sits in your organization has that potential to be 3x what they currently are. Let that soak in for a minute. That everyone in your organization, every person sitting on the phone, answering support calls, whatever it is, has the opportunity to be 3x what they currently are. And if that's true, and you don't dream, it's silly.
Yeah.
Like, why would you not? That's why, to me, it's such a practical thing to say, yeah, let's get people dreaming, because I want to see what their potential is, because not only are they going to get that in their own lives, but we're going to see it in our organization. We're going to see people promoted. We're going to see people really make step growth in their lives.
That's phenomenal, Dan. This has been amazing. If there's somebody listening to this, they want to stay connected with you. Maybe they want to have you come out and certify their leaders in this kind of dream coaching, to be dream coaches. What's the best way for listeners to stay connected with you and to reach out and possibly work with you on this?
Yeah, fantastic. So first of all, my purpose, my mission in life is to help leaders to have these deeper conversations, to unlock more potential in those that they lead. And so I'm all in to help whoever is interested in helping. My website is Dream Leadership Consulting. And the best way is simply to go there, shoot me an email on my website, and we'll connect. We'll sit down and talk about how we can help your organization. And whether you're a small company of 25 or you're a big company of 70,000, like, we need to start down the path of implementing these kinds of programs for our employees.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm about. And there are other organizations out there. Matthew Kelly has Floyd Consulting. There are other organizations that help with this kind of thing. But at the end of the day, like, I know there's a lot of other priorities in marketing and sales and everything else, but the way we get to those priorities is through our people. And so to me, that's where we should begin when we're trying to solve problems, is how do I lead better? How do I help our people become more expansive?
Dan, well, just getting to spend, an hour with you here, and 30 minutes before we hit record, it's been fascinating to me to see how much you light up talking about this stuff and how truly passionate you are. I was so excited coming into this, and I'm even more excited about this concept, this entire idea, talking to somebody like yourself who really has, you've dedicated your entire professional life to seeing dreams come true of the people that you're around in a professional setting. I can't imagine, the impact that it's had on your personal life as well. So thank you so much for your time. This has been incredible, and I'm really looking forward to staying connected with you.
You bet. Keep dreaming, everybody.
We totally get it. We publish a ton of content on this podcast, and it can be a lot to keep up with. That's why we've started the B2B Growth Big Three, a no-fluff email that boils down our 3 biggest takeaways from an entire week of episodes. Sign up today at sweetfishmedia.com/big3. That's sweetfishmedia.com/big3.